Welcome to the How of Business with your host, Henry Lopez, the podcast that helps you start, run, and grow your small business. And now, here is your host.
Welcome to this episode of the How of Business. This is Henry Lopez, and my guest today is Adam Mann with Oostas. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to chat today about Google Ads, but not from a technical perspective, from a small business owner's perspective. So Oostas, as I'll tell you more about here in a moment, and Adam is with Oostas, is one of my trusted service partners, especially for digital marketing. Well, they are my trusted service partner for digital marketing. We'll tell you a little bit more about them in a moment. But if you want to get more information about the How of Business, including the show notes page for this episode, there's going to be a couple of links there in particular from some special offers from Oostas, then just go to thehowofbusiness.com. That's also where you can find information on my one-on-one and group coaching programs. So just visit thehowofbusiness.com. I also encourage you to please subscribe to my show wherever you might be listening so you don't miss any new episodes. Let me tell you a little bit about Adam, and then we'll get into it with him. Adam Mann has a bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communication, and he started his digital marketing career back in 2016 while serving overseas in the Air Force. As a data-driven person, as he identifies himself, Adam is always looking at numbers and trends to optimize content and campaigns, digital ad campaigns in particular, to produce the best results for small businesses. Adam is a Google Ads certified, or is Google Ads certified. We'll talk about briefly what that means, as well as DUDA certified, which is the website platform that Oostas uses and one of the premier website platforms in the industry. He is a digital search specialist at Oostas. And so Oostas is a digital marketing company, agency that delivers results for small business owners. They focus on working with small business owners. And they are my longtime trusted service partner for anything digital marketing. Their services include website design, search engine optimization or SEO, social media marketing, and pay-per-click or paid search marketing. Oostas founder and CEO Adam Kirk, a different Adam, two Adams in one company, Adam Kirk, he's been a guest on my podcast multiple times. Well, so with all of that, Adam Mann, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to talk about this stuff with you, with an expert. And but let's just talk a little bit more about your background so people understand why you're qualified to talk about this subject. As I mentioned, you've been in the digital marketing arena since 2016. But tell me a little bit about your background, like before you were at Oostas and then what you're doing at Oostas now. Just summarize that for us, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I started in 2016. I was actually deployed to Al Udeid Air Base when I first started into digital marketing. And that's over in Qatar, for anybody that's not familiar, over in the Middle East. So yeah, I started there. I actually started my own business as a side gig, as I'm sure many small business owners do. And then in 2020, so 4 years later, I actually got out of the military and started doing my own business full time. And I did that for about 3 years. And then I had to make a choice as businesses fluctuate, as business owners are aware, and I decided to go over to Oostas in 2023. So been there a little bit over a year now, and I'm loving it.
Oostas is a small entrepreneurial environment, so I'm sure it still gives you a lot of that flexibility that you had when you had your own practice, right? Your own agency, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very small team there, and we specialize in small businesses. So it's a lot of that still personal conversations with clients, and it's not this big corporate environment where
Right.
creativity stifled and all that
Right.
fun
You're
stuff.
not buried deep in layers of people. You actually do the work and deal with the customers yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you, as I mentioned, are Google Ads certified. Just briefly tell me what does that entail? What does it take to be Google's Ads certified?
Yeah, so there's actually a bunch of Google Ads certifications, and for each one, there's a course you have to take. And then every year you have to re-go through that course and pass a test at the end of it. So there's one for Google Search Ads, Google Display Ads, Google Shopping Ads. Every ads product out there has its own course and its own test. And like I said, you have to go through it every year to keep up your certifications.
And I mentioned your role. Let's see, your title is digital search specialist. What does that mean exactly?
So, and the easiest way to break it down is, like I said, we're a digital marketing agency, and my job is to help people's websites get found. And I do that by running the PPC and SEO departments. But like I said, not trying to get too technical. It's I help your website get found, whether it's organically or through paid search.
Yeah, beautifully said. Help websites get found. That's at the end of the day what we want. That's one of the biggest challenges and often a misconception that I find with small business owners. Somehow we believe that we put up a website and everybody sees it. And I get it because it's that mental thing where it's ours. We've put all these hours into it, or we've paid money to put it up, and it looks great. And we forget that it's a needle in a haystack, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's what I call is their business card websites. They look beautiful if you know how to get there, but until you figure out how to get Google to send people to you, nobody's getting there.
Good, but well said. Well said. Yeah, it's just a glorified business card until Google finds you and can send people there. Well said. All right, let's talk about Google Ads. And I thought I'd start with have you kind of give us for those who may not know. I mean, I think most people have an idea of what it is, or they maybe have seen them or understand them. They maybe have been at the receiving end of it, obviously, as we do a search. But kind of let's level set here. What are Google Ads?
So anytime you go into Google and you type in a search query at the top, the results that come up, you're pretty much for just about every search at the top, you're going to see the ones that say sponsored. Those are Google search ads. Now, if you're looking for a product and you're trying to buy something and it's got a picture of my favorite ones, if you Google blue running shoes and all the pictures of blue running shoes at the top, those are Google shopping ads. And then if you're just actually on another site, a lot of people don't realize this, they partner with Google, and all just the random ads that pop up around there are Google display ads. So they're all three different types of ads. You have to have different accounts for each ones if you want them to run well. But those are the different Google ads that are out there.
Yeah. And at least now, it's gone through so many iterations over the years, as I know you've seen, obviously, and I've seen. It used to be, I think I remember back when there used to be like a shaded box, and those were the sponsored ones. And then they didn't delineate them at all, and everybody complained about that. And now it says sponsored, so it's a little bit more visibly obvious. But most people don't even stop to necessarily look at that. We click on the top ones, right? And so that's why getting that placement at the top of the search results, that's why that's so valuable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what people will do is they'll look at the ad copy there, and if it matches what they're searching for, they're going to click it. Most people don't care whether it's an ad, whether it's the top organic, the free slot. As soon as it matches what they need, they click it and they move on.
Now you touched on a very important thing, which is I believe what we are, at least my goal is with my business websites, is to strike a balance between what I'm getting through paid search and what I'm getting through organic search. And so explain organic search for those who may not quite be familiar with that term.
Yeah, so the organic search, you also hear people talk about it as SEO all the time. It's the first results that come up that you're not directly paying Google for. So it's the ones that aren't sponsored, they're not ads. But once again, Google wants money and they get their money through the ads. So they put all the ads at the top, and the top organic searches are still below all the ads.
The best scenario is that I have a combination. I mean, ideally, I would love to, as a business owner, say I don't want to have to pay for Google ads. I'll just get found out organically, but that's not realistic. Ideally, I have a combination of those sponsored ads, and I'm organically showing up because of my SEO work, right? That's the ideal situation. Is that what you found?
Yeah, absolutely. The best case scenario is if you're a plumber in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, that's where we work a lot. Um, if someone types in top plumbers in Lancaster, PA, ideally you'd have that top ad spot, you'd have a spot in the map pack, and you'd have the top organic spot. So within the first 5 or 6 listings, your business shows up 3 times, and that sends your click-through rates, which is how often the people are to click on your ads, is through the roof.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's my thought as well. Okay, what type of businesses generally, or industries, maybe let's bring it up to that level, are some good examples? Not that it doesn't work for everybody, but what are some industries that stand out to you? I mean, you mentioned the trades or home services as an example. What in your experience and your experience at Oostas, where is it a great fit? What types of businesses?
Yeah, so like I said before, there actually are three types of ads. So they kind of serve different businesses well. So the service area businesses, like you talked about, the plumbers, electricians, anything where you're going out and doing the work at their location, search ads are your best bet by far.
Mhm. And that's because I might search for a plumber near me, and then that's where the search ads come into play.
Absolutely. It's where people are going to find those services. They go to Google because they don't know a plumber or yeah, they just don't know where to go. So they go to Google and helps them find them. So it's
Right.
a great fit. Now, if you're selling products, an actual physical product, e-commerce ads, which are shopping ads, are the absolute way to go there. And then if you just need more brand awareness, and this could be because you have a really complicated marketing strategy out there with lots of money to throw at it, or it could be because you have a product that nobody knows what it is. So they're not going out there and searching for it because they don't know to search for it.
Right.
Then display ads are the best fit.
I see, because those are going to get my attention and make me aware. It might uncover a latent pain, as we say in sales. I didn't know I needed that, but it's interesting. Let me learn about that. Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So that depends. Yeah. Okay. Is there any, and the answer might be no, but are there any kind of broadly industries where it's not as effective, where you recommend something else, like you might recommend Facebook instead, or something else? Is there anything that comes to mind, or do you think that across those different types of ads, you cover most industries?
So the ad person in me wants to say, yeah, Google can do everything. It's great. But no, there are definitely some industries where social media marketing is probably the better fit. Ones that come to mind right off the top of my head: food-based industries,
Mm,
restaurants. People love going on social media and seeing
sure.
all the yummy meals, and then they want to go there. So stuff with lots of visuals like that.
I see.
Generally, Google's not the best fit for it. Social media is the way to go.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I owned we owned, my partner and I owned a couple of self-serve frozen yogurt restaurants, which is a very, again, food, but also very visual, kids enjoying it. So Facebook at that time, certainly before the algorithm changed, was a top source for us to promote ourselves. But now a business like that, the Google listing and the Google reviews would become paramount as well, because for restaurants, people, I know I do, and most people I know, go to look at those Google reviews and making a choice on a restaurant, right?
Yes. So it's like I said, it's all tiered. So the best case scenarios are you get everything, but budgets and they exist for a reason. And if I said if I had to pick one, I would I would pick social media.
Yeah. Okay, so that touches on the question I had. In my experience, and I think you and Oosters are seeing the same thing, which is that Google Ads that we're talking about here today, it should be part of an overall marketing campaign that leverages other platforms, other sources, other tactics from a marketing perspective. Do you agree with that? I'm assuming.
Yes, completely.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's talk about some key terms, because in this world, you've already thrown out some of them. There's this whole vocabulary that can be confusing to people, and so I just want to level set on some of the key ones, and some of them are concepts as well. Like I'll start with the campaign budget, which is the money that we put into it. Typically, it's expressed on a monthly basis, and that's the money that we're giving to those ads for Google to bid against others that want to be placed for those same keyword or keyword phrases. Did I explain that well enough at a high level?
Yes.
So, a question for you. I've always heard that there's kind of a minimum 500 or something in that range is a good minimum budget. What are your thoughts there on a minimum budget and what you see as effective?
So I always recommend that our clients start at $500. We do offer plans that start as low as $250 for search ads and as low as $50 for display ads. But just the best bang for your buck to really make sure that you're getting results, I recommend a minimum of $500.
And my understanding also, Adam, is that I've always heard it takes a couple of months for it to gain some traction, for Google's algorithm to really start working, which seems a little suspect to me. But is that true in your experience?
It is. It takes a couple months. I'd say between 30 and 90 days. If you're not getting results within that 90-day mark, something's wrong. So at that point, yeah, you need to figure out what's going on. But that 30 to 90-day mark, it's absolutely correct. That's how long it takes for everything to get up to speed.
And why is that, right? So for somebody like me who's skeptical that I think it's just Google purposely trying to take my money until it starts working, what is it, the true reason at a high level why it does take that long?
So a lot of how Google Ads work, especially in the background, is it's AI driven, and AI is driving the world. So we're all a little bit more familiar with that, but that's not new for Google Ads. That's been that way for decades. But all those AI tools need data points. So every business is a little bit different. So as soon as it starts throwing ads out there, or we start throwing ads out there now, there's different numbers it's got to look at. And it's a ton of numbers. It looks through click-through rates, user intent when they're on different pages. So how likely they are in their buyer journey to actually convert, and a whole bunch of different numbers that it needs to crunch, and it just needs data points. So until it gets those data points, it's just not as effective.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense from now that we, all generally know a bit more about how AI works and how it learns. That makes sense that it takes time for it to accumulate this data for it to then make smarter and smarter decisions on the placement of my ads. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. Keywords. Everybody has heard that term, keywords. And, you had told me about another term related with broad match keywords and long tail keywords and keyword phrases. So let's just at a very high level, when we're talking about Google Ads or SEO, what do we mean when we say a keyword?
So a keyword is what someone is actually typing into Google. So when you're setting up your ad campaigns, you get to pick what keywords you want your ads to show up for. So broad match, like you were saying, is anything related to that keyword. So if you did top plumbers in Lancaster, PA, it can almost change it, if that makes sense, to anything that's related to plumbing. It could just be plumbing in Lancaster, PA, or sometimes it goes too far if you do solely broad match, and especially if you're not paying attention on it, it'll do like plumbing parts in Lancaster, PA, which then people want to go to Home Depot, not a plumber.
And is that where negative keywords come in? I think that's what it used to be called, or is called, where you say, but not these things. Is that where you set that up as well?
Yes, absolutely. You can set up negative keywords, and you can just block out certain things. So for
Right,
like
so
that,
that
you'd
it
block out
doesn't
Home
go that
Depot.
way. Yeah. So you keep it within its rails, if you will, as it's making those associations for us on a keyword search.
Yep. And then the other two we get to use are called phrase match and exact match keywords. Phrase match is, so if you put top plumbers in Lancaster, PAs, and you phrase matched it, they could search the best plumbers in Lancaster, PA. As long as the term plumbers in Lancaster, PA pop up, then your ad will show up. And if you exact match it, then they got to type in it exactly as you put it in there. If they do a typo, if they add any extra words, take any stuff out, then it's not going to show up.
So let me just go on a tangent here on this one because it's important. This is where the readiness, if you will, of the landing page or the website is important here. And that's why often you'll start there first before I even start my Google campaign. Is that true?
Yeah. So for any client that, or I say client, any lead that comes to Oostas, we actually run a check on their website first to make sure that their website's in good enough shape to run Google Ads, because Google needs to know what's on that site before they send an ad there. That way you can't do a bait and switch on them. Say it's for one thing, take them to your website and it's something else.
Yeah.
So that's the starting point for sure.
And then those keywords and that SEO has to be there so that it matches, obviously, again, and primarily. And that's what I think that's what people miss, is that what Google, at the end of the day, Google isn't trying to, Google is trying to provide the right answer for people that they search for, right? The more successful that search is, the more successful Google is for someone. And that's really what they're trying to do, correct?
Yeah, it keeps the user coming back. So the end user, they want to provide the best possible result for them every time. And then they do want them to click on the ad because that's how Google gets paid. But they really want that user to come back to Google every single time. And if people start clicking on ads and it takes them to the wrong stuff and it's not valuable, they're more likely to try out another search engine.
Yeah, they'll lose confidence, they'll lose trust in the search engine, and then that it all falls apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What else would you say about keywords that you've seen as people misunderstand, or misunderstandings or misconceptions? What other, at a high level, piece of advice would you have as far as how we think about keywords, making sure they're on our websites, leveraging them through Google Ads? Anything else that comes to mind?
So the biggest note that I'd have on keywords is it does actually matter what's on your site. People tend to think that SEO and all this keyword stuff, it's all back end and it's magical and you can't see it. And that's just not the case. Content matters. What is actually people see Google, especially as Google gets smarter with the newer AI stuff that's coming out. It matters what's there. And yeah, that's the biggest point that I would make.
And it matters that it's relevant to what people think should be there. So if I'm searching for a plumber in Lancaster, then the content that should be there should be about plumbing services in Lancaster, right? Now, the
Yes.
localization part of it, let's put that aside for a moment. But what I should find, and what Google wants me to find on that site, is information about plumbing, right? Either tips and advice, or, of course, how to connect with us. But more than that, the more information I have about plumbing services, that makes that my website, that much more content rich and web and keyword rich for the searches that people are doing. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So that's the key there. And that's why often when you start working at Oostas with a new client, you'll start with, I'll use the term cleaning up or upgrading the website first. Is that true?
It is. Like I said, we run a audit on it, and you can actually get a free audit if we have a resource that'll be provided at the end of this podcast. But that's the first thing we start with. If you just come to us just wanting Google Ads, we will run that audit on your site. If it works great, then we'll tell you it works great, and we can run with it as is. If it doesn't, we'll tell you why, and then we'll make recommendations from there.
Yeah, so this tool that Adam is referring to, I'll have a link to it. So just go to, or I have a link to it, just go to the show notes page for this episode at thehowofbusiness.com, and you'll see a link there that says free website audit tool. You'll click on that, and it'll run this audit. It's a great tool. It produces a pretty comprehensive PDF report that tells you a lot about your website, and it's free. There's no obligation whatsoever. If you happen to go to the Oostas website, is oostas.com/website-audit. So take advantage of that, check out and see where your website really is compared to where you think it might be. And again, even if you're thinking about running your own Google Ads, this is the place to start. So take advantage of that free tool. All right, let's come back to terms. One of my favorite terms is conversion, because I think that, as I've explained to many people, and you all do as well, people can get hung up on the vanity metrics, how many impressions, how many clicks, how many this, how many that. And those things are important. But at the end of the day, what I care about is a conversion, but everybody has a different definition of a conversion, right? So tell me about conversions.
So conversions can be pretty much whatever you want them to be. So part of our process at Oostas is we sit down with you and we figure out what you're looking for. Often it's form submissions and phone calls and that kind of stuff. And that's what we count as a conversion. However, it's important, if you're setting up your own stuff, to make sure that you get those conversions set up correctly and accurately. Otherwise, like I said, anything can count as a conversion. It could be set up as clicks. It could be set up as visits to a specific page, that maybe if that ad's not directing them there. It could be all kinds of stuff. So it has to be set up correctly, but you are correct. It can be set up however you want. And that gives us a lot of freedom to set up directly for what's going to work best for each business.
But what you touched on there is critical. If nothing else you take away from this episode, from my perspective, from a business perspective, it's this: that at the end of the day, this money that you're spending on Google Ads, or anything else that you spend money on, but we're talking about Google Ads here. And of course, we're talking about, in that 60 to 90-day range. After, as Adam explained, you've given it some time to gain some traction. But if I'm giving it a $500 budget, let's say, I need to get at least that much back and then some, right? So there's a multiple there that I'm looking for. Otherwise, it's not working, because most of us as small business owners can't afford to just do blanket brand marketing. We need action, call to action marketing, things that actually bring in revenue. And so what you mentioned is critical. And that's what is important. Then you'll get help with from somebody like Oostas, is to make sure that that ad that we're tracking, when somebody clicks on that ad, do they then convert to a lead? In other words, they call or they fill out a form. That's critical. Then separately, and also what it gives us, it's so valuable, is the source of that lead having come from those Google ads. If we don't do that, then we're blind as to why did the phone ring or why did somebody submit the form. Well, it could have been organic, or it could have been they heard about us, or it could have been a whole number of reasons. So that direct tracking of conversions to me is critical. Otherwise, you're spending money blindly. And then you ideally track that through whatever CRM you have, such that you can then track what closed, what turned into revenue, and the source being those Google ads. Any additional thoughts on that, Adam?
Yeah, the only other thing I would bring up is to mention that you can get multiple conversions for a single action if you don't set it up correctly. We had a client or a lead come to us, and they ended up becoming a client. But when they came to us as a lead, each one of their conversions was counting 4 times.
Interesting.
So when you actually looked at their account, they had more conversions than clicks to their website, which obviously, it's not possible. And if they were getting the numbers that were reported, they wouldn't be coming to us for help to begin with, because they would be overrun with some awesome leads.
Why was that happening, generally speaking? What was the issue?
So they had issues. They had multiple issues that led to that, but they had each one counting twice, and then they had it duplicated in their analytics account twice. So when you just factor that all out, it just it created a nightmare of just wrong numbers for them.
Yeah.
So I say that to say, verify the conversions that you're seeing with ads with what you're actually seeing. It should match. If it's not, then something's wrong.
Yeah.
So
you had, when we talked, I don't know, a month ago or so, getting ready for this interview, we talked about, you had shared some numbers on cost of leads and what I should expect in return. You had some general industry numbers. Can you share some of those with us? Again, these are general numbers, but that's always good to have as kind of as a benchmark, if you will.
Yeah. So if you have a well-optimized site and everything's set up right, we anticipate your cost per conversions for most industries. It's going to vary for some industries between $25 and $35 a lead.
And so that also gives me an opportunity to think about, that goes back to, the question about what products or services is this not a fit for. If your price point is below that or around that, then it may not make sense, right? But again, this is just a general number. It varies by industry. It varies by how competitive those keywords are, right?
Yes, and those are specifically for search ads. Like, so for e-commerce, we pretty much put out there that you're going to get about 400% return on ad spend for most products, as long as people want it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that would be for that. So that'd be for every dollar you spend on ads, you should get $4 back in profit.
That's in an e-commerce. If I've got an e-commerce site where I'm selling physical products and I'm running Google ads to be found, about a 4-to-1 ratio is generally a benchmark. Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. I'm just making a note here for my own notes. Okay. Then one other area that I want to explore, and then we'll move on, because I've had it happen with one of my clients. This gentleman is in the garage door industry, doing garage door installs and repair. And that falls, as I want you to explain a little bit, into a special category. And I understand why. It's there's been a lot of home invasions and access to people's homes. And so it's an industry where integrity and security and making sure you are who you say you are is important. And Google wants to ensure that. So there's this thing for that category called Google Advanced Certification, I believe it is. But explain that, and where, like with garage doors and others, maybe you've got some other examples where that requires even an additional level of setup to be able to run Google ads.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first part to lead into that is Google's in the process of making everybody go through a basic verification. And that's just proving that you are who you say you are.
Who you say you are. Okay. Okay. So we're all going to start seeing that base level of validating, certifying that I am who I say I am.
Yeah, they're going through all the different accounts now, and as you can imagine, Google's a massive company, and they have it tiered out, so it's a process. But if you have a Google account set up now and it's not verified, then within the next couple of years, they're going through each month and they select different accounts that they're requiring to get verification to essentially prove that you are who you say you are. That's the basic verification. An advanced verification, which is, like you said, specifically for its locksmiths, garage door companies, that kind of stuff. That's a more in-depth process. Um, for that, they require a lot of special pictures and different stuff. So it can be a little bit complicated. Now, if you're with us, we walk you through everything you need to know. We do everything that Google lets us do. Sometimes Google requires stuff specifically from the actual business owner. And when that's the case, we let them know exactly how to handle it and they go from there. There is another process. It's called, that's for advanced verification. The advanced certification process is actually a different process for, it's like healthcare industries. If you sell health insurance, another one is finance. Those are actually third-party certification processes that Google requires those businesses to go through to ensure that they are who they say they are and they're providing good services that actually meet industry standards.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And that the key takeaway for me, as I have seen, is that if you move forward without doing these things, you can then get shut down in Google's eyes. And to get that taken care of is a monumental task sometimes. Because in my experience, and you don't have to say anything here, Adam, but my experience has been, in my client's experience, that if you've got an issue that you need to resolve with Google as a small business owner in particular, it's a black hole, man. Getting a hold of anybody is almost impossible. That's my experience. But here's the question I do have for you. That's an example. We've talked about other examples of making sure the website is ready. What else do you see when people try to do Google ads by themselves, as I have? I have a technical background. I think I'm somewhat savvy. I'm arrogant. I think I can do it myself often. But what else do you see that are places where people make mistakes when they try to run their Google campaigns themselves?
So the biggest mistake by far, and the number one mistake that people make, is that as soon as you make a Google Ads account, Google will start selling your information to these third party, they call them Google Ads experts, I think is what they changed the names for them. But those people get paid off commission, but then they sell themselves as working directly for Google, which they don't. They're not a partner, because that's once again a different program. Mm-hmm. But they're commission based. So their goal is not to get you more leads, it's to get you to spend more money.
And that is, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is why so often I have seen those people help, quote unquote, my clients. And once it kind of gets, a little bit more difficult or challenging, they ghost you, they disappear. That's been my experience.
Yeah, they change their account representatives for each one every quarter, or sometimes more than that too. So you're not dealing with the same person. Right. They're making just blanket recommendations. They're not looking at your account because they give them 400 or 500 accounts, and all they're trying to do is get you to up ad spend. That's all they care about. Mm-hmm. That's by far the number one mistake that people make.
Okay.
We also have issues where a lot of people will go for the smart campaigns and PMAX campaigns, right. And these are supposed to be beginner tools, but they're really not. They're Google's way of trying to get you to start spending money. They'll give you some results, but not great results. Typically with that stuff, you're looking at over $100 per conversion, and it's just not an effective way to run ads. But they get more money then, and they get to sell you lower quality ad slots that professionals, or if you go in and you really set up your stuff well, that you're not targeting those. You don't want those low quality slots.
Yeah. Well said.
And
excellent.
For all this stuff too, we do have a blog link that you can go through, and it highlights some of the most common mistakes that people make, or especially small businesses make, and some things that you should do if you are going in there and trying to set it up yourself.
And then we also have another download that you recently released called PPC, pay-per-click ads. Does PPC work for small business, right? That's another blog post or article, I suppose, that's a great download that's available. Just go again to the show notes page for this episode, and you'll find a link there to download that free download. Very informative document there. All right, let me ask you this question. I want to know, I want you to share with me how an example of how it is that Oosta helps clients with Google Ads. And maybe if there's an example you can share without naming names, and maybe use that as a way to explain how Oostas helps small businesses manage and run effectively a Google ad campaign.
Yeah, I actually have two examples I can give you. One's an e-commerce and one's a service-based, so it kind of hits both areas. Now, the first one, before they started with us, they were spending over 6 months before they started with us. They spent over $2,000 in Google Ads, and that was for e-commerce. They only got $918 back from it. So they were actually losing money by putting the money into ads. They weren't even breaking even. That doesn't even include all their product costs.
Mm-hmm.
So the year since they've started with us, they started with a lower ad spend, and then as it worked, they upped their ad spend. So over the last year, they've spent a little over $30,000 in ads. But on the flip side, they've made $174,000, which is about a 567% return on ad spend. So just phenomenal results for them. And as you can see with those kinds of numbers, it makes sense why they're now spending far more per month.
Sure, yeah.
Because they've seen the results and the value there.
Mm-hmm.
It's for one of our service-based businesses. The 5 months before they started with us, they spent $4,600 in ads, and they got 33 conversions, which they were going for phone calls and lead form submissions. Which, when you work out those numbers, it's almost $140 per conversion.
Ooh, very expensive leads there.
Yeah, so the 5 months after with us, they actually cut down their ad spend because we do have costs associated with us. So they kind of factored that in, and they lowered their ad spend to $2,510, which is roughly $2,100 less than they were spending before. But for that money, they got 65 conversions. That's as of today. I just pulled it up before we got on. It's just one shy of doubling their conversions while cutting down their ad spend. And that took their cost per conversion to $38.61 from the 100 and almost 40 that it was before.
With that service company, I'm just curious, did you have to do any work on their website, or was their website solid already coming into this?
So with that one, we did not do their website. It was already good to go. So we don't try and upsell if we don't have to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's such a challenge for people. So many people go and the first, oh, we got to redo your website. It's like, oh gosh, wait a second, and people spend so much money on websites, and then to have to throw it all because that's the thing that's so frustrating in part. This whole arena of digital marketing, whether it's a website or Google Ads, it feels like it's such a moving target to a business owner. It feels like the next expert you talk to tells you the previous expert was completely wrong. There's so much of that, and it can be frustrating, but what it leads to is it paralyzes small business owners to do nothing or to continue doing what they're doing that isn't providing enough. And that's why we get frustrated with the misinformation and the moving target that we feel that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So both of those examples actually, they kept their existing websites. We just had a lead. They have multiple businesses. They kept their first website when they came to us with the second. It wasn't set up as well, and we told them that. We try to be as honest as possible. So if you're good to go, we're not going to try and upsell you on a website.
Excellent. All right. So I've been recommending Oostas for many years now, and this isn't meant to be a commercial for Oostas, but it is my trusted service partner. So if you're there where you're needing some help with Google Ads or your website and SEO in particular, Oostas is who I recommend. And so what they do is they offer a free consultation. Just go to thehowofbusiness.com or oostas.com. It's OOSTA. It's an interesting name. There's a whole story behind it. Either way, and there's a button there to schedule a free consultation. And the way that works is mostly you'll be talking to the other Adam Kirk, who's the founder and CEO. And it's a very consultative approach. They actually will tell you after that call that they will do some thinking and research and get back to you as to whether it's a mutual fit. They're a small organization, so they get to be selective as to who they work with. But that's in part what I like about them. And as Adam just alluded to, They're not in business. They haven't grown their business because they're gouging anybody. They provide authentic services for small business owners. Anything I didn't mention about Oostas that you wanted to add, or did I get it covered? Adam, any other thoughts there?
No, I think that covers it. I just would highlight that. I mean, we do the free consultations. You also would get free proposals. So you would get pricing options and ranges with before you spend anything, we give you options. So
Good point. Good point. All right. And I mentioned a couple of tools, the free website audit tool and also the download, Does PPC Work for Small Business? Again, go to the show notes page for this episode at thehowofbusiness.com, and you can find those two free tools. So what's one thing, if I'm a business owner, a small business owner listening, I need to do digital marketing. Maybe I haven't done it before, or I haven't had success with it. What's one takeaway you want them to take from this conversation that we had today, Adam?
If you're not doing it, your competition is. Is the general gist there. And I do have a couple just big level numbers. In the US alone, 2.28 billion searches happen on Google every day. 46% of those searches, which works out to 1.05 billion searches in the US, are people looking for local services. So this isn't the people going there for Amazon or Walmart or those big companies. 1 billion searches a day in the US alone for people looking for stuff like restaurants near them, plumbers near them, local businesses. So like I said, if you're not doing it, your competition is.
Yeah, well said. Well said. All right, Adam, thanks so much for taking the time to be with me today and share all this information, great insights. And thanks for explaining it to us at a business person's level and everything that you're doing at Oostas for your clients. Sir, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me. I enjoy being here.
This is Henry Lopez, and thanks for joining me on this episode of The How of Business. My guest today again is Adam Mann with Oostas. I release new episodes every Monday morning, and you can find the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, including at the How of Business YouTube channel and at my website, thehowofbusiness.com. Thanks again for listening.
Thank you for listening to The How of Business. For more information about our coaching programs, online courses, show notes pages, links, and other resources, please visit thehowofbusiness.com.